Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It's Jeremy Werner, Joey Wagner, with a special signing day edition of the Illini Inquirer Podcast. And Joey, this one feels different as we're talking about Illinois football class that ranks in the top 25 nationally of the team recruiting rankings. And it's kind of a historic class. It is, of the recruiting rankings era, last 25, 26 years, all the way we go back in the composite rankings. No class is ranked higher than this one for Illinois. Coming in at number 21, narrowly beats out Ron Zook's few classes in 2007, 2008 that were both ranked number 22. That included the two five-stars, Martez Wilson and Regis Ben, back in 2007. And Joey, there's some headliners in this one, 5 4-stars in this one, including Champ Smith, who flips his commitment on signing day as Brett Bielema is at the podium. We got to see that announcement along with Brett Bielema. Obviously, he knew it was going to happen. And also, Javari Barnett, running back, 3-star running back, snip, snap, goes from Illinois to Alabama to Illinois. An eventful day, Joey, that started with you and I at 5:30 a.m. at Mary Ann's.
Always good to see you at 5:30 at Mary Ann's. The music was really on point. You had a little
Banging.
Pink Pony Club. What was some Katy Perry? We had a really nice morning. Visited several establishments, restaurants. We did not go bar hopping at 6 a.m.
I kind of feel like it now after the long day of work that we put in. But it's one of my favorite days to cover, always has been, because one thing I love, and I wrote this in my signing day spotlight intro today, is I love covering recruiting because we get to know these kids, not only their games, but kind of their backstories, a little bit about who they are, what makes them tick. And you kind of know a little bit about them coming into the program, which I think pays off when we want to tell stories about them. But also we just kind of know a little bit about their background and their game. So it's one of my favorite podcasts of the year. I talked with GM Pat Embleton. That's one of my favorite conversations. We'll have that on tomorrow's podcast. But it's kind of a culmination of all that. And boy, the staff put so much work into that, Joey, that it feels like this was a culmination of Brett Bielema's 5 years of winning, of stability, while other programs are unstable or are changing coaches or on the hot seat going into next year. Illinois continues to win. And then there's money all factored into this. And it all feels like it's trending gradually in the right direction for the Illini.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you asked Brett Bielema the question. I thought he summed it up in the way that we've thought about it is you have wins to sell. You have success to sell. I understand. We don't need to rehash what this season was. It's still an 8-win year, and you're still going to a pretty cushy bowl game. But you have that, and you have 3, back-to-back wins, seasons of 8 or more wins. You can do that in 3 of the last 4. Like, you're having that now, so you can buck that trend of, hey, man, like other coaches would obviously, hey, you could go there, but are they going to win enough for you? And then you have to doubt it. And then that success obviously matters. Stability matters. We've seen the coaching carousel seriously impact classes around the country. And then there's money. And, like, I get it. Like, we're still kind of in that window where sometimes the money thing comes up and everyone's like, oh, I don't know. It's a real thing. And Illinois is equipped to put a really nice recruiting class together. I thought it was also, before I turn it back to you, I thought it was a really interesting point that Brett Bielema made today. And I think it's true. He was filibustering a little bit to begin his press conference to tell Champ Smith now. But this class did have the fingerprints of pretty much the entire building on it. And that's as this thing goes to a more front office / coaching, 2 separate divisions, I guess, of the Smith Center that work together. Everyone kind of had a hand in everything a little bit here. And it ended up being the number 21 class in the country with, 5 4-star players. That's a darn good class, Jeremy.
Yeah, Pat Embleton, in my conversation, again, we'll put that in the podcast tomorrow, dives into how they have it set up, just what went into this class. So nice in behind the scenes, and Pat was pretty upfront about it. But I do think one of the most interesting answers that Brett Bielema gave to my question was about the money aspect of this, that 2 years ago or last fall, he's sitting there saying, hey, we had a $5 million roster. We're going up against $20 million rosters. He said, all I wanted was for Josh Whitman to give me the chance to be in the ballpark. He said they're in the ballpark. So Illinois is not poor, right? They actually have, they talk about the family. They talk about their NFL development. They talk about how they outwork some people in recruiting. Now, if you can be in the ballpark money-wise, Joey, maybe you don't have the biggest offer, but if they like all those other things and money is at least good, even if it's not the top dollar out there, it's going to give you a chance to have a class like this. And that's what's encouraging to me. So if people say Illinois doesn't have the money or isn't spending money, they're steering you wrong. Illinois has money to spend, even if it's not Oregon dollars or Ohio State dollars yet. They're in the mix. And I think that helps you land recruits like this because you have other good things to sell, Joey.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a big gap between Oregon dollars, Ohio State dollars, some of the programs that have high dollar amounts, and being flat broke. Like there's so much wiggle room there. And what Brett Bielema said that you mentioned is, hey, get us close. Like there's players that maybe they have bigger offers from somewhere else, but if we can make it close financially, that will at least, make it worth their while, then that relationship piece will take it over the edge. And I mean, I have no reason to doubt that, right? And if I think Brett Bielema knows there's going to be a gap at times in terms of what you're offering versus what some of these more prominent, not even more prominent, more deep-pocketed programs are offering. But he really, and this is since he walked in the door, right? He really believes in how his staff goes about this in terms of knowing what buttons to press with what recruit, knowing who to talk to, knowing who in their building to send to talk to them, when to do it. Like, we've seen that play out, and now that money part is starting to come to fruition.
So let me just go over a little bit. I have a Google Doc sheet. My wife would be proud of me. My spreadsheet. She's all about those. Just to tell you, like, how this all stacks up for Illinois historically. They have the number 21 recruiting class, highest they've ever had. Number 6 in the Big Ten. That's top third, remember, in the Big Ten. The last time Illinois did that was 2008, 2007, when they were number 3. They were number 5 in 2009, but there were only 11 teams in the Big Ten at that time. So that was top half. The average star rating in this class, 87.99. Star rating inflation is a real thing, but this is way higher than any class Brett Bielema has had. Top 1,000 recruits, top 1,000 composite recruits, Joey. Illinois has 20 this year. The most they've ever had before this was 14 back in those 2008, 2007 classes. They had 13 last year. They had 1 in Lovie Smith's last class. They had 7 in Brett Bielema's first class. Only 1 decommit. I know that's something you want to talk about here a little bit later. 2 top 10 in-state recruits. That's just the first or second time since 2009 Illinois has done that. The other was Caden Fagan, Malik Elzy a couple years ago. 7 top 30 in-state kids. That's tied for the most that I can go back to since like 2005. In-state total, 8 guys. Average Power 4 offers per prospect, 12.6 in this class. Brett Bielema's first class, 3.3. And you got 5 4-star composite prospects the first time since 2009. Illinois has done that. So it stacks up everywhere. And if you don't believe in the rankings and you think it's all just based on quantity, well, no, the composite rankings actually, it's the top 20 that matter. Everything else after that doesn't matter. This is the highest ranked class Illinois has had. So this stacks up really, really well. And Joey, it's 6th in the Big Ten. It's, I think, 11th in average star rating, 10th in average star rating in the Big Ten, somewhere around there. This is a class that Illinois can win a lot of Big Ten games with.
Yeah, and it's a class that you can have guys on the field early, and it's not just – and I'm not trying to rewrite history or rewrite the way that we talked or thought about previous classes, because that's not fair to do really in hindsight. But there are guys who are going to need time to develop in this class. But I think there's also guys who can play immediately, and I think there's guys who could play after a year, right? And it's not looking where you have to really project out, oh, hey, call me in 2 years, call me in 3 years, and see what happens. You can see a handful of these guys coming in early. I think there's a good amount of starters in this recruiting class. I think there's a lot of 2 deep in this recruiting class. It's a nice mix. The best way I can say it is a nice mix of top-end talent, your Nick Hankins, your Micah Smiths, your Nasir Rankins, Kai Pritchard, Jacob Eberhardt, with depth, right? You've attacked a lot of positions in this recruiting class. They just put it together really well. And before we get on to the next topic, I just want to get ahead of it and talk about they've had 1 decommit in this class. Iowa is the only other program in the Big Ten with 1. No one was a perfect swing on all of theirs without any decommits. You're talking about holding on to some really talented players. And that, I think, you benefited from flip cycle, right? Now maybe you had some late minute hold on for dear life and just get to the fax machine moments, but we don't know that, right? Like that's not out for us. I can tell you that Mizzou helicoptered in to see Nick Hankins during his high school football.
Literally helicoptered in.
Yes. He obviously went and watched a football game at Mizzou. That's been publicized. Nasir Rankin. I'm pretty sure schools didn't hang up the phone as soon as he put out that commitment video to try to get a hold of him. Those are top 300 guys. Jacob Eberhardt, 402. To go into Kirkwood and win a recruitment over Mizzou is no small feat.
Oklahoma was a big one there, yeah.
But that is a Mizzou hotbed, right? Mizzou does very well in that area. You go in and you win that, then you hold on. And I just don't want to look over the reality of holding on to these recruits because that's a big stinking deal. And you've seen what happens when a recruit it stinks if you're a fan of watching these guys that you've fallen in love with for 3 or 4 months go bounce somewhere else and go somewhere else, and that's great for them. But to hold on to those guys, that is huge because we know that they were sought after.
Yeah, and the one decommit you had, Victor Singleton. I mean, I don't know if anybody was closer to Victor Singleton than Corey Parker, the guy who gave him his first offer at Toledo, and was the reason that Victor Singleton bought into Illinois. But Texas A&M comes in and is able to steal him away, and it is a pretty big statement that Illinois is able to hang on to all those guys. Speaks to relationships, speaks to trust in the staff, speaks to money, I think, that Illinois is able to hang on to some of those guys. So I think that's all really, really encouraging in this class. And to end it the way you did, Joey, is huge, right? To be able to get Champ Smith, a guy who came here on an official visit, most likely because Brett Bielema and Vero Beach coach Lenny Jankowski are like best buddies. But that relationship gets you in the door with Champ Smith. And from everything I've heard, this was all Bielema. Like Champ was just infatuated with Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema built the trust there. And you knew when he committed to UCLA, right? Of all the schools he has, Ohio State, Tennessee, SEC, UCLA, that thing feels like it could be open. And 3 games into the year, Deshaun Foster is fired at UCLA. And that thing's opens up Tennessee, Ohio State, get official visits with Champ Smith. He picked Illinois at the end because of Brett Bielema. That's what he said while he was on, the podium at his high school. So to get him, what a big signing day flip at a big position of need. And Jabari Barnett, Thad Ward does not quit, man. Alabama swung him from his commitment to Illinois. He committed to Illinois in April. He decommits, goes to Alabama in June. And Illinois kept battling. Thad told me today, he just kept the lines of communication open the entire time. And about the last couple of weeks, started to pick up more and more. And just like he did with John Forster, he was able to flip him. And I don't think Alabama wanted to lose him, but did they fight for him as much as Illinois? I'm not sure. But that gives you a big back that Thad Ward's a big fan of, that's got some acceleration and adds some nice depth in that room. So 2 big signing day flips there, Joey, to put an exclamation point on this class.
Yeah, I talked to Bart Miller today. It was just a quick point on Micah Smith, and so they became very close with Micah Smith, with his family. He said he watched him practice during one point during the eval. He said it was the best high school practice he's ever seen. I mean, this kid, he's a very, very talented player, and that was a huge get for them. But they do a good job of 2 things. One, and we've seen this in flip season, knowing when to gas, and even though they're committed, make their points without being in the way. I think that's a big deal. Like that, if you're in the way, that can turn people off, right? It's just they don't respond well to that. And 2, and I think this is the case with Micah Smith, Bart Miller told me, they knew when he committed to UCLA that if he came back, there was no ifs, ands, or buts that he was going to be part of the class. And I think the point is, and we've seen this with John Forster, we've seen this with Jabari Barnett, they will move around a little bit to make sure that they have space. Like there's very few times where you've been like, it was a good prospect, but they were full. So guess not. Like they will move around the pieces on their chessboard to make sure they're not missing on a guy that they really like and who really likes them. And I think that's also a big deal and allows them to be available in this 12th hour of signing day to land some of these guys and land some of these flip candidates. So I don't think that's nothing. I know some, in your mind, you think, they're so rigid. You're taking X number of this position, Y number of that position. But the ability to be flexible opens the door to be landing spots for some of these last minute guys.
All right, we're going to give our top 5 biggest gets in this class. We're going to give the guys who could play right away. We'll talk a little bit about the JUCOs. We'll talk about our guys. Maybe we're not going to take the top 5 guys and say, hey, that's our guy, like Nick Hankins. He's my guy. Just kind of guys that we like in this class. Then we'll talk about the position groups we feel good about, some ones who maybe we have questions about. Then we'll talk a little bit about the portal needs and maybe some misses in this class that we can kind of look back on. Weren't too many of them in this one. But we should look at in-state too. It was a big deal when Brett Bielema got here. Him and his staff, his original staff, talked to every coach they could in the state here. They split up. Remember those graphics they sent out of which areas they all have. But Pat Ryan's been a big part of that, the Illinois director of high school relations in the state. But they get 8 in-state commitments, 7 top 30 guys, 2 in the top 10, Joey. Huge day in May when they get both Nas Rankin and King Liggins committed on the same day. Downstate, getting a kid like Casey Toman, going down to Metro East, getting a kid like Nick Hankins, Davon Grant up into Calb, northern part of the state. Kind of went everywhere. They kind of touched everywhere in this class, and this is what you want. You're not going to get all of them, Joey, but Illinois is now getting a couple of the best ones and getting some really good power 4 players throughout this class.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to show yourself that you can be a viable candidate to win games, to be competitive financially, and to get guys to the NFL. And Illinois has done that to this point under Brett Bielema, and that's attractive to some of those top in-state talents. And you're right. I do think it's a point that you did kind of go all over the map in the state to get guys. And I mean, you know it, man. I mean, everyone recruits Chicagoland. Everybody. And I know if people may be tired of hearing that. Any coach can fly in there easily and fly out of there easily and hit a number of schools while they're in there to recruit that area. You're probably just as close to Wisconsin and Notre Dame as you are to Illinois. Regionally, Iowa's not all that far away. So, like, there's a lot of different factors in getting into Chicagoland and winning these battles. Like, King Liggins wasn't a flip officially. King Liggins was pretty close to a flip. I mean, that was down to the wire with Illinois.
That was going Wisconsin's way about a week before. That was starting to turn towards Wisconsin, and Illinois was able to turn him away from that.
And a week might be a little bit longer than what it actually was. Like, that was a battle. But then the thing that, I mean, I went to school in the Metro East. To go in the Metro East and win those contested battles, especially against Mizzou. But, like, there's a lot of SEC flavor in the Metro East, even though it's only 2.5, 3 hours from Champaign. I mean,
that's officially Illinois. That area is SEC territory.
That's right. All right. So to go in there, and you get Carson Boyd last year. You go and you follow that up with Nick Hankins and Jacob Eberhardt. He's not in the state, but I mean, pretty close on the other side of the river there. We won't count him, but I mean, for the fact is, he's still right there. I just think it's an impressive way to get all over in the state. I know Brett Bielema wishes he would have had one more big pull out of Central Illinois, out of Dunlap. He did not mention Max Sutter by name, but we know he said today he went as hard at a prospect as he's gone. I think that was a quote, Jeremy.
Yes. And J.C. Anderson, Illinois went really hard for. And JC now follows Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss to LSU. Max Sutter was the top target. Like, he pushed so hard for him, and this was all the way up into signing day. All the way up until signing day, and Illinois had inroads there. I think they were closer to landing Sutter than they were J.C. Anderson. I think Anderson in the spring they had a real chance at. But once that got into June, it got away from Illinois, I think. But Sutter was a target they continued to recruit. We saw Brett Bielema show up to a Dunlap game, this fall. He kept pushing. And, hey, give yourself a chance on the second go-around, but not able to land one of those downstate 4-star tight ends. You were able to get Will Vala, and I give them a lot of credit for going after Will Vala. And I know Robbie Disher's a big fan of him. I think he's a really good football player. I think J.C. Anderson's going to take some time to develop. Max Sutter's a stud. And you weren't able to get the number one player in the state, Joey, but, boy, you were in that battle and pushing Alabama.
Yeah, and I also say, I don't want to overlook Casey Toman, 6'7", hell of a good athlete who had offers from programs, Iowa State, programs that have traditionally been able to come into the state and take away offensive linemen. So, it's funny I guess I hadn't thought about it until you were talking there. If you would have told this conversation a year ago at this time, or let's say 9 months ago at this time, it would have been like, and we talked about it. You have to get one of Sutter or Anderson. You have to get one of Sutter or Anderson. And they obviously went very hard at those two. I'm not trying to say like, hey, don't sweat it, because they wanted them. They recruited them very hard. This class turned out pretty good without getting either one of those two. And I think that's a testament to where this has gone, is we had two guys marked as those are such important downstate recruiting targets. You don't get them, and you still end up with 5 4-stars. You still end up getting 7 of the top 30 in the state, 2 of the top 10. That's a pretty good pull. Obviously, you'd have liked to have those other 2 guys, right? You're not turning down 4-star tight ends, but I just think the way you're able to rebound and to still feel like this is a really stinking good class, that's a good sign for Illinois.
Yeah, and I think it's always a good thing when you got guys like Hank Beatty, Aiden Lawfrey, Caden Fagan being a part of your winning, right? Like, I think that's a good sell, because it's easier to get the next guy when there's a current guy they know, like a Braden Trimble that's going to be on the team, and I think be a big factor next year to have those guys contributing. Matthew Bailey, in-state kid, right? Like, I think it's really important to have those kind of pieces on the team so they continue to build in-state and it continues to get better.
The holiday season can be so much fun around your loved ones, but it also can be stressful. Think about, what am I going to prepare for that holiday meal at home? What am I going to give that loved one for the perfect gift this holiday season? So whether you're sending an unforgettable gift or treating yourself to everyday perfection, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Gift USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, and so much more. I'm telling you, Omaha sent me some of the steaks, some of the burgers, some of the beef franks as well. Those delicious hot dogs. They're some of the best, most tender meat you can get. And now during their cyber sale, you can get 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites at omahasteaks.com. Don't miss the best deals of the season and exclusive limited time offers. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. That's $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. Again, save big on unforgettable gifts with omahasteaks.com. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code Illini at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Illini at checkout. Terms apply. See sites for details.
All right, top 5 biggest gets in this class, Joey. I'll let you go first.
Well, I don't think our top 4 are going to be too different from one another. I don't know how they could be. So I'll give my number 1. We'll just go back and forth. That sound good?
Yeah.
Nick Hankins. Nick Hankins is awesome. He is an awesome football player. Brett Bielema put the tease out today that Nick Hankins and Jacob Eberhardt could play both sides of the ball. They are starting on defense, but I truly believe him when he said that at some point, maybe they're probably more package-based than it is full-time Travis Huntering on both sides of the ball. Nick Hankins is a really good corner. I think he could be involved in special teams. Like that, to hold on to him, to win that recruitment. And they won it, let's be honest, kind of comfortably in the summer. Yes. He visited, and it was done. There was no back and forth. That happened. For a prospect of his caliber, that happened in a really quick and meaningful way. And then you hold on to him through late pushes. That's number 1 for me. I am a huge Nick Hankins fan. I think he's a guy who's going to roll in here day 1 and be in the 2 deep. And beyond where at in the 2 deep, we'll see what happens, but he's going to have his opportunity.
Nick Hankins is the highest-ranked prep prospect to sign with Brett Bielema, the highest-ranked Illinois player since Isaiah Williams, Marquez Beeson in the class of 2019. He's a guy who can play right away. I think he can compete in that 2 deep, and even if he doesn't win a starting job right away, Joey, injuries happen all the time, but he is physically ready. He is athletically ready. He is my number 1 best get. I just think the guy he actually reminds me of, I put Vontae Davis as my Illini comp just because I do think he can make an immediate impact, be a guy who make leaps to the NFL early in his career. The guy who he probably reminds me of most athletically is Quan Martin. And that's elite athletically. He is a freak athlete. And, I think Nick is probably a little bit stronger than Quan was coming in here, but boy, Quan played an early impact, turned into a hell of a player. I think Nick Hankins has that kind of potential. I mean, Quan was a second-round NFL draft pick. I think that is in the cards for Nick Hankins. So you need to add more DBs of that caliber. And along those lines, I'll go with my number 2, Jacob Eberhardt. It'd be my number 2. I talked with Aaron Henry about this, and I posed this to him. I said, do you feel like your recruiting has caught up to your development in the defensive backfield? And he said, yeah. Like, finally, like, Devin Witherspoon, we're wondering how quickly does that turn into big-time recruits, Quan Martin, Sidney Brown. Now you have Xavier Scott and Matthew Bailey, potentially NFL guys. When does that turn into big recruiting wins? It's this class. Like Nick Hankins, Jacob Eberhardt, Jaquan Morris, the JUCO corner. And then I think Elmirian Thomas is really good. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But Eberhardt, I compared to a souped-up Matthew Bailey. I think he's a freak athlete for his size, 6'3", 200 pounds, kind of long defensive back. I think he could play receiver pretty good as well. But I love him as that boundary safety, kind of that hybrid DB linebacker, huge get. This is the kind of talent you need on your defense to succeed because, you can scheme things open offensively. You need athletes on defense, especially in that secondary. And I think Hankins and Eberhardt give you guys that are next level athletes that Illinois needed.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cosign on all that. Brett Bielema mentioned the Matthew Bailey comp for Jacob Eberhardt. I know there's a very bizarre discourse, in my opinion. If that's where you want to stand, that's fine about Matthew Bailey and his talent, value, NFL. Matthew Bailey is a really good football player. He is a very, very good football player. And that sell for Eberhardt to come in and have a similar role where, basically, physically they're different, but playing style, there's a lot of overlay there between those two. There's a lot of overlay between those two and some dude named Sidney Brown in terms of playing style, who went in the 3rd round to the Philadelphia Eagles. So that position, you're seeing, I think, a really nice kind of succession plan fall into place there after Sidney Brown and Eberhardt. To me, I know they've got a lot of boundary safeties. That's what they call that position. He put him up to near the front of the line in terms of the guys they have. He's just incredibly talented.
Yeah, Sabur Kareem could be in that next year if Matthew Bailey's gone. If Matthew Bailey returns, I think Jacob Eberhardt could be, his replacement eventually. They like Zanai Scott in that role. So interesting, the body types they have. But when it comes to Bailey, I think Eberhardt's got better ball skills. I think he's a little bit better athletically. So I just think there's a really, really high ceiling for me. So that's why I got him number 2.
Yeah, I'm with you. My number 2 is Eberhardt was 3. Nasir Rankin. You go in. Wasn't an accident that when Brett Bielema was talking about Nasir Rankin, he brings up Ayo Dosunmu, Morgan Park, what he meant to Illinois basketball. It wasn't an accident to bring him up in that conversation. Ayo was there when Nasir Rankin committed to Illinois. Like that, he's very electric with the ball in his hands. I know Nasir Rankin has incredibly grand plans for his time in college, to be dual side, to be dual sport. He can come in and give himself a chance to be in that conversation at wide receiver. I don't know that I'm going to say he's a day one starter, but he's a guy who maybe you find a way on special teams. Maybe he's in that rotation in the slot because you've got to replace Hank Beatty. And I know you have some returning options coming back, but Rankin's really good with the ball in his hands. And he's a guy who I think you'll see some of him in 2026. And I think you'll see a lot of him in 2027. He's a guy that's going to be on a pretty accelerated into the rotation plan. And that stuff matters. You need dudes. And to be in that plan, you got to be a dude with the ball in your hands. And I think that's Nasir Rankin. And you go in, you win him, and you hold on to him. And that's huge.
What excites me about Nas is I think a lot of people would place him in the slot because he's got that explosiveness as an athlete, but also just the acceleration. It's just rare. And you can see it on the basketball court as well. And he's such a competitor. But he can go up and win on the outside as well. And he's got some power to his game. Like he's not coming in some skinny slot receiver. This is a true athlete, like a point guard body. He looks like he could be a Michigan State point guard. Like that's kind of how he plays. He's a great athlete. So I just think he's going to be a guy who can play early, get the ball in his hands, whether that's as a returner, get him some reps on offense, however you can. Like I can't see him in the rotation early on, but his ceiling is huge, man, especially when they started recruiting him as a DB. Like Aaron Henry was the first guy in on him, but he wanted to play wide receiver. And Illinois is like, okay, we'll get Justin Stepp on you. And Justin made him an absolute priority. So to land him is huge. The top prospect in the Chicago Public League, it's huge for Illinois to win those guys. And he was a huge win, stays in the top 247 at 247. I think that's about right for Nas Rankin, but a competitor, great athlete. And let's get into the conversation. Like, we can talk about basketball later. We can talk about DB later. He's an Illinois wide receiver first. That's what he's going to come in here and focus on, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Very just like Hankins and Eberhardt are going to come in and focus on being Illinois DBs first. I think also before we get to our number 4 here, I think would be 4 for me, 3 for you. I just want to point out, I think people who listen to us know, I promise you we're not going to do this whole pod and say there's 30 immediate impact starters or rotation guys. Okay, like we are getting to the tail end of that conversation. I just don't want anyone listening to this to be like, all right, hold on. Every guy they've said is coming in here is going to be an instant impact guy.
No.
It is a short list, but it's a bigger list, Jeremy, than we've seen in past classes. And that, I think, is what we're trying to convey. So there might be one more, maybe 2 instant and probably one more high school and a couple JUCO instant impact guys. But I promise you we're not going to spend the next 30 or 40 minutes telling you that every guy who signed today is going to roll his way into the rotation next year.
Yeah, we'll talk about those here in a little bit. Champ Smith, Micah Smith is my number 4, Joey. We talked about this class. They needed to hit on a different caliber of offensive linemen. I think for me, it was a different caliber of athlete plus power. Like this is a Brett Bielema program. And the offensive line recruiting prep-wise has been underwhelming. A lot of these guys haven't developed. A lot of them have kind of looked slow at times. There's never have been factors in the rotation. Champ Smith's different. He reminds me of Larry Boyd, Vertus Brown. I know those names, like those guys didn't end up working out, but the bodies and athleticism were there to where they started games very early in their career. Vertus ends up transferring and not playing when Brett Bielema got here. Larry Boyd was a year 1 starter on a team that had way too many young guys playing, but you could see the talent that was there with Larry. Like Champ's got that kind of athleticism and power, but obviously Brett Bielema really likes the makeup of this kid as well. He's been well coached at Vero Beach. I don't think you want him to start next year, but it would not surprise me if he's in the 2 deep because he is physically and athletically ready to play. He's a big dude. There's not a ton of bad weight for him for an offensive lineman.
Hello, Barge Captain in 2026.
Yeah.
That feels like a way to get Champ Smith some reps. I think he'll be on that fringe 2 deep. Just not for anything. You're in the Big Ten, man. You don't want to have to put freshman offensive linemen out there if you don't have to. Brett Bielema showed a clip of him in 7-on-7 catching. Is there a Brandon Henderson barge package coming out of that? I don't know. He's one of those guys. I don't think 2026, because you don't want that to have to be the case. He is a January enrollee, by the way. But you get into 27, and now you're talking Champ Smith in a pretty, really meaningful way, in my opinion, unless he gets to campus and just absolutely blows you away with everything. So, he was my number 4 as well. He's different level. And the schools you beat out, I know it's a flip from UCLA that might not get, that might not get the attention, but the schools you beat out down the home stretch of the second recruitment of Champ Smith, that is some real stuff. I think it was Tennessee was in that conversation, and Ohio State was in that. That's real stuff to win that recruitment in those final moments. Just, it's a big deal, man. And we'll see what 26 looks like, but 27, I'm looking for a home for that dude in a hurry.
All right, we'll bring up Champ Smith's brother, Maurice Smith, also joining the program. He's a D2 quarterback. I don't know how much he's going to play into that factor. I expect Illinois to go get a transfer quarterback, Carson Boyd, Ethan Hampton, being a part of that competition most likely. But he's an interesting athlete who could play tight end. But obviously getting both those brothers, Bielema had mentioned earlier that he was going to have more brothers to the program. Those are 2 of them. Who's your number 5, Joey? Best get in this class.
This is where we're going to be a little bit different, I think. I went JUCO on this, and I went Micah Matalau. If you go back, he was a good recruit coming out of high school. He takes a mission trip for 2 years. He has to come back and put on weight and get into this football mold. But look at who was pushing for him down the home stretch of his recruitment. This guy, Mike Matalau, took a lot of visits he saw a lot of different places. BYU was in there. Wisconsin was in there.
He passed down that crumble cookie money, man, at BYU.
I wouldn't pass out crumble cookies. Like we should have got those for Inquirer today. Jeremy, that's a missed opportunity on your end. I just think he's a guy who can come in. There's a little Isaiah Adams to his game, and maybe
a lot of Isaiah Adams, in my opinion.
You don't want to fall in love with the JUCO story. There's a lot there. I think he's a guy who could play tackle at Illinois. His future is at guard in the NFL. I think if you could get him into a more like tackle, to me, if Micah Madela is a tackle, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for Illinois, but I think you would prefer to have him at guard and just let him take that and run, because you didn't really want to move Isaiah Adams to tackle his final season at Illinois, and you had to do that. I think he is a guy, JUCO guy, built pretty well, had a lot of suitors. He is someone to watch coming into and spring ball, training camp, and moving forward. That landing him, you felt good you get him on campus. I know he talked to you, said they were the number one, and it's like, okay, he's going to see a couple more places. He's going to see a couple more places, and you wondered, has this one gotten away from Illinois a little bit? And they closed the deal, land him. I really like that get.
I really like him. I really like TJ Taylor on the offensive line. I think those two can be factors in the starting. Like it wouldn't. Those guys to me scream like the right side of your line next year potentially. And if you got two of those in the JUCO market, it's pretty big deal. Also like Jaquan Morris, we'll talk about that here in a second. Those guys are going to make a more immediate impact, so I should go with them. How can I pass on a quarterback that had 20 plus Power 4 offers? Michael Clayton is another elevation of what this quarterback room is, the talent level in this quarterback room. A couple years ago, we talked to Trey Petty on our signing day special. We can't do those anymore because these kids are in school now during the early signing periods. It's moved up a couple of weeks. But Trey was a really good prep get. And 2 years later, he's got to go to the portal because they've gotten Carson Boyd. They're probably going to add a transfer here. But Carson passed up Trey Petty right away because Carson's a really good prospect. Now you have Michael Clayton, who's different. Carson's 5'10", 5'11", really good athlete, phenomenal thrower, everything right up here in the head. But Michael Clayton, 6'3", cannon of an arm, places the ball extremely well. Not, I would say, a runner, but can prolong plays, can make plays with his legs when he has to. Gives you a different flavor in that quarterback room, but also just gives you a lot of talent. So I know in the composite, he's like number 1,300 now, which is crazy to me. He's a really talented quarterback, and you just want to keep stacking talent. So eventually, if he's got starting potential, Joey, he's going to be one of the best top 5 gets in this class. I'll roll the dice on that, even though he's going to have hard competition with Carson Boyd, with Camden Lapati in 2027, who's maybe the best quarterback prospect they've added. But I love that they keep stacking better and better talent in that quarterback room, because I think Carson Boyd can start at this level. I think Michael Clayton could start at this level. I think Camden Lapati could start at this level. So all those guys, really, really talented pieces.
Yeah, that's right. That's a position you can't have too much talent. There's just no such thing. And if someone's not where they want to be, that's just a heavy rotation in terms of in and out of program position. It has to be. You have a finite amount of time in college.
Quarterbacks are going to transfer. Yeah, quarterbacks are going to transfer, but you want to make sure that you have multiple of them so that somebody who is talented has to transfer, like Trey Petty is right now.
Yeah, I like Michael Clayton quite a bit. He was very much kind of the forward face of this recruiting class. He was their first commit. He was a guy who was very much out there. Caden Cobbs gave him quite a run for his money with his social media work. Cam Thomas gave him quite a run. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Clayton. We'll see. Like, he's a guy who, just get him in here, let him keep developing. He also fits Barry Lunney's mold for quarterbacks. He's got the big arm, pretty accurate. But the thing that I keep coming back to with Lunney, and I don't remember who it was we were talking to him about, but it's not necessarily a prerequisite that you can run, but you do want someone who is mobile, like Luke Altmaier. He's probably more dual threat than not, the way that we've seen him go, right? But his ability just to prolong a play, to take an incomplete throwaway and just get 3 or 4 yards, that is hugely valuable. I think Clayton
Fernando Mendoza does that too, right? Like,
yeah.
Fernando Mendoza is not the best. Like, that's how I would kind of describe Michael Clayton's running. It's not like, hey, this is a huge weapon, but when he needs to, he can pull that ripcord and make a play with his legs.
Yeah, and even 3 or 4 yards is a huge deal versus, sack or a negative play, whatever the case is, or extend it. to find a little, dump out to the flat. I think Michael Clayton's a good quarterback. The composite ranking isn't there. I can't sit here and tell you I fully understand it. The tape looks good. The suitors were good. That passes the test to me, man. And it's a good get.
That was a cool story that Pat Hamilton told me, but Brett Bielema said at the podium. I didn't realize that when he committed,
he flew in.
Yeah, he flew in unbeknownst to them, and his parents were on a Zoom and said, "Hey, we want the whole staff on there." And Michael Clayton walks in the building and in the Zoom room and says, "Hey, I'm committing." That's really awesome. It's a great story.
That is. Oh, I mean, because the kid's from Florida. It's not like he drove over from, pick your Midwest town or Indianapolis or Chicago. He's from Florida, and he came to do that. That guy was on campus a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Clayton
Big-time
was
recruiter
here
in this
a
class.
ton. Yeah, and Brett Bielema said, there was a summer workout on campus that Michael Clayton threw.
Remember who was with him?
I do. I do
Nas
remember
Rankin?
the two tight ends and Nas Rankin.
J.C. Anderson, Max Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like he really threw it around pretty good in that workout. Brett Bielema said today it's kind of came to us through the wind after that. Like, hey, that kid can really sling the football a little bit here, and he's got good size. Just a lot to like about him, right? And I keep stacking them, man. Keep stacking good quarterbacks.
Yeah, we talked about the JUCOs a little bit. I think TJ Taylor can compete right away at tackle spot. Matt Allow, I think tackle or guard. I mean, Taylor could probably go into guard if they wanted to, but I just think he fits great at tackle. Reminds me of Melvin Priestley, only longer, with his kind of tone-setting ability in the run game. The other guy, Jaquan Morris, cornerback, they need more there. Even if Xavier Scott and Matthew Bailey came back, they need help because Torrey Cox is gone. Jaheim Clark, I feel great about him returning. I think he can be one of their best NFL prospects next year. But you need more corners. You need more depth there. But I think Jaquan Morris, whether it's corner or nickel, I think competes right away. To flip him from USC late in this process, Joey, to get the number one JUCO corner in the country. Huge addition for that secondary that still needs to add more, but that's a good start. Alfred Washington, I think, is a guy. Brett Bielema said today he's raw. I think he's probably a year away from playing, but it'd be interesting to see what they can turn him into. He's got 3 years to play two. So maybe this is a redshirt year where you can be in the two deep, or if you need him at some point to fill him because of an injury, maybe you can play, but needs to add a little bit of strength. But I like the JUCO guys they went after. I don't think they reached. All these guys are some of the top players at their position. So, you don't want to become completely JUCO but it seems like the guys they got pretty talented, and I think 3 of them have a chance to be starters.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Morris is fast. I had heard probably 2.5, 3 weeks ago that they were trending for him. I think once they got him on campus, that was pretty much a wrap. I think there was confidence once you got him on campus, you're going to be in a good spot. He's a guy who, outside of Juice Clark, I mean, you got young guys and you got Caleb Patterson. This is it for Torrey Cox. And Jaquan Morris is going to have a chance to come in. If Xavier Scott does not come back, I would expect them to sniff around the portal for some cornerback help. But you also got a star position there, a nickel position that would seem to fit Morris too. So some versatility with his game.
Reminds me of Xavier. He reminds me of Xavier a lot. A little lanky, but doesn't play like it. Like, plays bigger than his size with his tenacity. Great athlete, great short area quickness, but has some length to him where you get those passing lanes. So he's got a little bit of that Xavier Scott to him.
Yeah, and this is a JUCO class I feel pretty good about. To be honest, like, I know the JUCO at Illinois has been a little bit up and down. Their hits have been really, really good. Isaiah Adams, Zy Chrysler. I know Brett's going to claim J.C. Davis, but he had the New Mexico stop there. Caleb Patterson started for a year. I don't think Caleb Patterson's a world changer, but he's a 2-deep cornerback.
Good addition. Daniel Brown, good addition.
I think, to be honest with you, the JUCOs they've gotten in this time in the calendar year have worked out fairly well. It's when you start getting into that April, May, where it's like, oh, yeah, that didn't really work as well as you would hope. There hasn't been the production, but for the most part, if you go back, I think Des Schuster, just feel for the guy, right? Like the injuries, his medical issue, like that really derailed what I thought was a guy who would be in that 2-deep spot. And that really was a buzz for him out of training camp. So I get it if you're hesitant on hearing some JUCO stuff, but the December JUCO window has paid dividends for Illinois.
One of my favorite things about waking up in the morning is coffee, and it's even better if you get it from Columbia Street Roastery. And the best thing to do around the holidays is give coffee. And they got a great way of doing that. Columbia Street Roastery, if you go to csrcoffee.com, they have a subscription box that you can get. Each month, Columbia Street sends you freshly roast coffee of 3 different half-pound bags. You can get from their flavored coffee box, their dark roast, their medium roast, their decaf box, and you can get a subscription for $25 per month. What a great way and what a great gift to give. Or if you want to get something for yourself, go to csrcoffee.com, check out all their fall flavors, all their great brews, and they also have tea and hot cocoa. So go check them out at csrcoffee.com. And our listeners, you get 10% off your first order if you use the code GOILLINI2025. Again, go to visit csrcoffee.com, get 10% off your first order with the code GOILLINI2025. You get free shipping on orders over $45. That's all at Columbia Street Roastery at csrcoffee.com.
Okay, Joe, let's get into our conversation about our guys. Should we do 2 on each side of the ball? And I think the rules here have to be, cannot be a 4-star. Cannot be a composite 4-star. So that takes out Hankins, Smith, Rankin, Kai Pritchard, Jacob Eberhardt. So do you want to take your offensive guy? Do you want to go 2 and 2? Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. I do need to find another offensive guy at some point, but I will.
If you just want to do one, we can just do one.
No. It's a good. We don't have rules here. You're lucky I don't have a beer. I thought about having a beer coming in here. Yeah. I'm going to go Will Bala. And this, I don't want this to come off as like you're just trying to overcompensate for losing 2 tight. If Will Bala is 2 inches taller, which is he's not, right? Illinois is probably not getting Will Bala. He is a good receiving threat. He's physical as hell at the line of scrimmage. He's a guy who, and I asked Robbie about that, Robbie Disher. I said, how do you see that physicality? It's like, we can see it when he plays defense. He's a guy who he's going to tackle, not because he has to, because he wants to. And you pair that with his ability to stretch the field. I think he's a really good prospect. I hope people don't see it as some sort of consolation prize for not getting those other 2, because he's a good prospect. I think he's going to make an impact at Illinois in his career.
He's different. Like Mac and JC are these long, traditional Y tight ends, or at least that's the hope for JC. Mac is certainly that. Like Mac is going to be a guy that, well, on the line of scrimmage, I'm not going to say he's going to be this guy, but the way Colston Loveland is built, like that, he's that kind of football player, great receiver. I think he's got some nastiness. JC Anderson to me is more of like a split out tight end. I think he's got to add a lot of physicality and strength, but the ceiling is so massive because he's so long and he's, was he 6'7", and he's a basketball player out there, right? He's just a great athlete, can make some great catches. Will Vala, really good football player. He's 6'3", 240 pounds, but he might be as physical as any of those guys, and he's a really good athlete. Like when he gets the ball in his hands, he can pop, Joe. He's a good athlete. So the guy I compared him to was John Davis for Illini fans that go back to the Ron Zook, Tim Beckman era. Like he's kind of an H-back, but has some physicality. You can get him in the passing game and some of these short routes, but he's got some explosiveness to him. So, that Tanner Arkin role he'll play, maybe he needs to add a lot more strength to be Tanner Arkin in the blocking game, but as an athlete, he's a different level than the guys they've had there here recently. So I don't think he's that traditional Y tight end, but in those 12 personnel packages, I think he could be a really good weapon.
Yeah, I really don't want him to get overlooked because I think he's a guy who tight ends take a while to develop, and he's going to be in that category. But I think he's going to end up with a pretty nice career at Illinois, and he just brings a lot to the table. So just don't think of him as a guy just because you didn't get the other 2. They were taking Will Vala. They were taking him regardless of what happened with Anderson or Sutter, and you didn't get those 2, but you got a pretty good tight end.
I'm glad they did. I'm glad they prioritized him before those guys made decisions because he was worth taking regardless, as you said. We can just go 3. I got 3 guys. I want to call
okay.
So
do I.
If you just got 2 more, you can just go 2 more. My offensive guy, Kenyon Austin. Love him. I've loved him ever since they started recruiting him. 6'2", I think he's like 200 pounds, 190 pounds. Listen, I'm not saying he's going to be a 3rd-round draft pick, but when Pat Bryant was coming to Illinois, he had a lot of similarities. Just a contested catch winner, kind of sneaky, fast, really good athlete, but just a football player. I can see him being a great blocker. He's everything that really Justin Stepp loves in wide receivers. He was kind of his first priority. And they landed him, Joey, and kept him despite Michigan pushing all out for him. So I'm a big fan of him. I think he could see the field early in his career, maybe not as a freshman. We'll see on that. But like as an underclassman, I could see him finding a role, especially with the wide receivers Illinois has. Like they've been building that room pretty well. But he's had a lot of success with guys like this, Cortland Sutton, and obviously Pat Bryant here. So I think Kenyon Alston's a guy that just has a really high floor, but also with that high ceiling. And I think he's a little underrated in this class.
Yeah, I like Kenyon Alston quite a bit. My rule of thumb is if you're coming in as a willing blocker, you're going to find the field sooner than later at that position. Like that, if you're a D1 commit, if you're going to a Power 4 school as a wide receiver, I'm going to guess you can catch the football. You can do that okay. Right, if you're
productive guy in Orlando, which has some really good football, Joey. What do you have, like 2,800 yards in his high school career, like 1,800 or like 2,000 something his last 2 years?
Yeah, he's got 1,000 this year. They're still playing, by the way, Kenyon Alston and Bishop Moore. I like him, and I just think that willingness to block, like you got to the point where there's overlap. You hate to say Pat Bryant because Pat Bryant was a third-round pick. You don't want to set undue or unfair expectations on a kid. But they play the game. We talk about this with Eberhardt and how you see with Bailey and Sidney Brown. There's a lot of physical overlap in those games. You still got to develop. You still got to get there. But the overlap is there, and there's a reason. I mean, it's not just us. They pitched Pat Bryant to this kid in the recruiting process. That's no accident. Pat Bryant was very much a comp for them in there, and I don't think that was by accident.
All right, Joey, how about a defender for you?
I'm just glad we got some light so we can see Jeremy Werner.
I had to turn the light on. It's getting dark.
Turn the light here. Yeah, well, it's just, it really adds to the mood, I thought, but do what you got to do. I like Tony Belunganai, not just because we learned how to pronounce his name and spell his name. I think he's got a really high ceiling. He's a guy that in the recruiting process began being looked at as an offensive lineman. He really took to playing defensive line in Illinois as they went through the film, saw that tape, and you see someone with length, someone with some explosiveness, someone who can really develop to fit that 4-eye that Illinois does, runs well. He's 6'4", he's 260. I just think it might take a minute because defensive linemen take a minute, right? It's not, but when that light goes, when that thing really starts to build steam and take off, and you've been in the development chamber and you end up kind of having those Angelo McCollum-like moments, then it's like, okay, this is what you saw in the recruiting process. And just credit to him for saying, hey, I really believe in myself defensively. And for Illinois to say, yes, we also do believe that. And you turn on the tape and you can see why. I think Alan True was pretty encouraged by what he saw out of Tony Belunganai's defensive film. So just going into Palatine, getting him, being receptive to what he wanted. And I trust Terrence Jameson to take this potential of Tony Belunganai and bring it to life. We'll see what the timeline is on that, but man, there's a high ceiling there.
Yeah, Brett Bielema compared him to Keith Randolph. Yeah, I kind of see some Tommy Wadura-Ajayi, which you talk about Terrence Jameson development, Joey. That one gets a little overlooked because he came in as a transfer with some rotational experience at West Virginia. He didn't play at Florida State, right? There's not a lot of football snaps from him in the college level. I thought Durajayi was a very good Big Ten starter this year. So that's kind of what I see. I think it's going to take some time, as you said, but the length, athleticism, twitchiness, really, really exciting. Number 14 prospect in state. How many defensive linemen does Illinois get that are top 15, top 20 guys that are Big Ten? Like that is starting to become more of a regularity now with guys like him and King Liggins, like Cameron Brooks. They're starting to land more of those in-state defensive linemen that for so many years, Joey, went to Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. Trey Pierce doing what he's doing at Michigan. Like those are the guys Illinois needs to land more of. And Belunganai, really good get. Along that defensive line, like I really like King Liggins. I think the floor is really high. But we talk a lot about King, right? I think Parker Krim is a really good evaluation by Illinois. Out of Ohio, played edge, and put up monster stats as a junior as an edge rusher, but barely anyone offered him. And Terrence Jamison comes in and offers him, and all of a sudden a lot of other schools get involved, like Boston College and some other Power 4 schools. But Illinois was able to close on him before the summer, and he kind of reminds me of Cam Brooks, and he kind of started as an edge, but as he added strength, that athleticism he has, plays better on the interior, going up against guards, and just that twitchiness to get some penetration. So, I think of Bologna as kind of this edge setter, James Thompson, Tommy Wadirjaye guy. Like Parker Krim's got the potential to be like a really disruptive 3-tech, 4-eye technique. I think really add some pass rush value. Maybe, Angelo McCollum's a nose just because of how, he's not very tall, not very long, but Parker Krim's got that length to him. Like he's a long dude with that athleticism. So again, a guy that in 2 or 3 years might take him that long to get there, but give him that time with Terrence Jamison, I think he'd be a really good Big Ten defensive lineman.
Also, A+ Twitter handle, Crim Reaper.
Best one. Crim Reaper, yeah.
That's as good as it gets. I don't know. I like Parker Krim. I don't know if we're talking enough because you've seen the rebuilding on the offensive line. You go get Michael Clayton. You have these DBs. Jeremy, I like this defensive this defensive line haul with Parker Krim, with Tony Belunganai, King Liggins. Like I don't want to overlook King Liggins. I know you mentioned him. This is a really nice haul on the defensive line.
They're stacking them, Joe. Demetrius John and Angelo McCollum. I think Eddie Turk was a part of that class now on the offensive line. He's got a chance to play next year. But they're starting to stack those classes. Cameron Brooks and Isaiah White last year, right? Like those were 2 really good gets for them. Now you add 3 more guys like we just talked about. Like, got to have that year after year. I hate doing it again. Iowa, Wisconsin, year after year, just churn out quality defensive linemen. These are Power 4 defensive line prospects.
Yeah, look, Angelo McCollum has earned himself a starting spot. He didn't have the best length coming out of high school. He's a good football player. He didn't have the length. Now you're starting to see Illinois get guys with the measurables, with the athleticism, and then you give them to Terrence Jamison and Tank Wright. I like that combo. And I don't mean that as a slight to Angelo McCollum, but like you look back, he doesn't have maybe the ideal length. Demetrius John didn't have the quick twitch, right? But now you're starting to pair all of that together with the good coach, with the good strength staff, and you can see a stacking. So I just want to make sure we point out this is a fun defensive line class, even though the DBs are going to get justified attention, the receivers and go down the line. But man,
offensive line.
I like the dudes they have there.
All right, one more of our guys. Who's your last one here, Joey?
Can I interest you in a 6'2", 217-pound linebacker with speed? That get you interested at all? Good. Cam Thomas. I like the speed of which he plays. He's got the size. Another one of those where he fits a little bit more of that longer, that athletic linebacker that we've sat here and said, Illinois really needs a couple more of those guys. He's got some edge. I thought there was something interesting that Brett Bielema brought up. He's got some edge versatility in there. You can bring him in different looks coming off there to get after the quarterback. You obviously can play him in space. That's a good win to go into Ohio, same high school as Grant Bierman, and get a top 600 kid who's got the traits, who's got the speed, who's got the measurables, and to win that recruitment. I mean, that he had some suitors. I mean, people were after Cam Thomas, and Illinois wins that one. I just think he's kind of got that athleticism that Illinois, we see it, right? I mean, you need to infuse that linebacker room with that athleticism.
I mean, I can't imagine being a high school team going up against Grant Bierman and Cam Thomas at Lakota West, like one of the best linebacker duos in the country at that time. Illinois gets both of them, and they complement each other so well. So you can just imagine in 2 years, right, Grant Bierman and Cam Thomas being your 2 linebackers. That Grant with that length and speed and athleticism. I think Cam with his physicality, some versatility. He can rush the passer off the edge as well. Yeah, he's a really good get. And this linebacker class, kind of want to bring up, like Tony Williams, a little undersized, love his athleticism. Caden Cobb's kind of like a tweener between safety and linebacker, but great speed. Tony Williams has great speed. You still need to get bigger there, right? I mean, I know the Big Ten is more spread out now, but you still need some big linebackers. And, Cam Thomas, he reminds me a little bit of CJ Hart, which remember when he came in here, it was like, oh, that's a different sized linebacker. Milo Eifler, when he came in here, was like, oh, that's a little bit different looking. I think Cam Thomas brings a little bit of that to him. So like his upside as well. My last one, I got a type of defensive back, and it's Aaron Henry's type. It's the 6'1", lanky, probably a little skinny, but ridiculously athletic and ridiculously tenacious. Almirian Thomas, I think, is a really good find. Really has overcome a lot of adversity. His dad died before he was born. His mom died just a couple years ago. He's living with some family friends. But, man, he has stayed focused. He is hungry with football. And I think Aaron Henry identifies that with where he came out of and where Almirian Thomas comes out of. But the athleticism, the speed, the burst is great. And he plays with great physicality, Joe. And his length, he's just got, I think, plus wingspan at 6'1". And Aaron, my comp, he said it today. He said he reminds me of Juice Clark, only he's a little bit longer. I like that. I like that kind of player a lot. So Almirian Thomas is kind of a sneaky guy. I wouldn't be surprised to see the field next year. Special teams, kind of like Juice Clark did as a freshman. Maybe eventually get some snaps defensively next year. But I think as an underclassman, he can see the field defensively.
Yeah, I meant to bring this up earlier when you talked about covering signing day in the way that we do and getting to know these guys and getting to tell their stories. Your ability to tell his story help people bond to him immediately. It helps you understand the drive with him immediately. And I think that's the stuff that really you wouldn't expect anyone who's an Illinois fan to know the depths of Florida high school defensive backs, right? But to be able to know him, to understand everything, I think that really goes a long way. Juice Clark comes to mind. The real shame of it is, and I don't want to, like, this isn't the comparison I'm making. You can't say Devin Witherspoon as a comparison because it just puts the worst of all possible expectations on a kid. It's just not fair. But there is that long, that tenacious, that sticky kind of that you see with Juice Clark, that you see with Almirian Thomas. I don't want to, like, those two, I'm not saying those two are Devin Witherspoon, but there is that type of tenaciousness, that type of length, that type of lankiness that has played well for Illinois at the cornerback position. So, like, as much as you want to say, like, oh, it reminds me of the way that Devin Witherspoon, you're never going to make that comp. You're never going to. But, like, that's why Juice Clark developing into this has been the perfect, like, just put that comp on him. And I don't want anyone to hear this thing like, oh, my God, these two, that's not what I'm saying. But if you look at their body types coming out of high school, you can see overlap there. And that's the point I'm making. I'm not trying to tell you that Thomas is going to be the 5th pick in the draft or Juice Clark is. That's not fair. But the length is there. The measurables, the way that they play, the mindset is there.
There's a couple like comps you just can't go to. Like Parker Krim, I kind of wanted to say Johnny Newton. I can't. You just can't. You can't go there. No. Can't go consensus All-American. Now Nick Hankins, I went there with Quan Martin and Vontae Davis because I think he can handle that. I think that is a worthy one for some of these other guys. I can't go with Spoon or Johnny Newton. That's a little too far for me. All right, I think that wraps up our guys. We mentioned some positions we feel good about. Offensive line, I think they did a great job. They needed to do a good job. Defensive back, I think the talent upgrade is serious. Wide receiver, this is becoming a wide receiver school, Joey. You get a couple first-team All-Big Ten guys and then add Hank Beatty. He's probably going to be second or third-team All-Big Ten. We'll find out tomorrow. Defensive line, they stack. We talked a little bit about linebacker, some smaller guys in there. Tight end, need to add still that long, athletic guy. Outside linebacker is an interesting mix of guys for me. Mm-hmm. I really like Jacob Alexander. Great get out of Lincoln Way East. They were the first offer him. That's what we want to do in state. I think he's got a high potential. Jalen Stewart, really twitchy guy out of Texas. Brett Bielema mentioned he could play linebacker, but he's probably going to come off the edge. Caden Bennett out of Connecticut, kind of undersized edge rusher. Kingston Shaw, kind of a big dude, edge setter. It's just kind of an interesting mix of bodies there, Joey. And I don't know if there's like one guy that's like, the perfect combination of all of these things, but it's just an eclectic mix. I'm just interested to see how that group comes out. I'm probably highest on Jacob Alexander, though, because Jalen Stewart and Caden Bennett probably can be seen as a little bit of tweeners.
Yeah, that's right. It's very interesting how that room has evolved in terms of what they're looking for. Like, you've got a couple – Gabe Atkins, Joe Barna, big Kingston Shaw, Jacob Alexander's bigger bodies, your bucks, right? That's the position, one of the outside linebacker position in Illinois. It's called a buck, and that is very much that bigger physical mix. But I think that's pretty much held true for the most part with this outside linebacker room.
And I think Kingston Shaw and Jacob Alexander would probably be those.
I think that's right. The body type has pretty much been the same year over year with what you want. The Fox, I think, has really evolved quite a bit because you're not long, like Seth Coleman. If you think of him, he was long and twitchy. You're not really getting as much length, but you're still keeping that quickness, that twitchiness at the body. Your Daniel Brown type of molds. Your, JoJo Hayden ended up moving inside, but you're kind of blending those two in a pretty significant way. You don't have a lot of length with Jalen Stewart, with Caden Bennett, but they're quick. They're football players. And that's what I talked to Trent Harris about today. It's just a really interesting way that room has evolved at the Fox position. Buck, we know that's been steady.
Can I whiteboard something? Because you're hearing Buck and Fox. I'm like, what the hell is that? Buck is boundary side, which is the short side of the field. So if the ball is on the hash to the boundary obviously is a shorter side of the field. The field side is the wide side. It's more ground to cover, so you usually want a faster guy on that side. Boundary side usually is more of the guy who can stuff the run a little bit more, doesn't have to work in as much space. So you still want athletes, you still want some similar size guys. And they've kind of downplayed it before, but the Fox usually you want to be a little bit quicker guy because he's got to cover more ground.
Someone went to the J. Lehman School of Animal Names, huh? Look at that, man. That was a good explanation.
Try to learn some football here, Joe.
Oh, man. That's good stuff. Yeah, but that's exactly right. I think the evolution of the Fox position at Illinois has been really an interesting one, to be honest with you. And it's just kind of grown with that. And I'm curious to see how this all looks after years of development with those guys. Because, again, just like offensive line, just like if you are near the trenches, you are going to take time in the Big Ten, God willing. If not, something's probably gone wrong, or someone is a freak show and way better than what you thought they were going to be.
Is there any other millennials out there? Anytime you hear Fox, are you just ruined by what does the Fox say? Like, that's all I keep thinking about when you say Fox. What a terrible song that was.
It's 5 p.m. We got to Mariann's almost 12 hours ago. I am a little pissed at you to have that stuck in my head from 5 until the time that I go to bed. I'm sorry for saying that. I know kind of want a few more.
You said Fox too many times. I'm just sitting there going, what does the Fox say?
I am irate.
And I know everyone in their car or on their walk right now is doing that. I don't even know what
you got. Yeah, I am not thrilled with the decision you've just made.
You're welcome.
To bring that up.
You're welcome, everybody. Good night. All right, last one. The transfer portal opens up, Joey, on January 2nd. Pat Embleton, great explanation of their approach coming up. Should we break down the portal needs? Should we update our portal needs?
Yeah, before we do, I just want to whiteboard something else, if we could. Yes. The portal opens January 2nd. And you're probably hearing that and saying, wait a minute, didn't Trey Petty and didn't
Malik
Elzy, I know it's been a long day. Didn't those guys say they were portaling? Yes, they did. Yes, it's coming out. The guys are going in the portal. This is basically, I declare I will be going to the portal, right? That's what this is. It's you're out there. You're kind of letting it be. That's basically letting it be known that you'll be available. If somehow
Easton Baker is the name you're looking for.
Easton Baker, thank you.
God, what great film! What great film that was for Easton Baker.
Awesome film. I stand by that. So
he's just 6 foot. That's problem.
Right. That's right. So if you're saying like, hold on, I swear you guys have posted stories about, yes, they've declared their intent, basically saying, hey, we are going to be on the market when the market opens, right? Even though all that's back channeled anyway. So that's what we're saying. It's not officially open for another month, but you are going to see names which declaring their intent to portal. So that's what's happening there.
It's basically like the legal tampering period right now in the NFL or NBA that these guys get in the portal, their agents can take calls, all of that. So it makes sense.
For me, it's, I have reached out to Mr. J about selling me a home. To me, it's like, hey, this house is going to be coming on the market. It's not there yet, but just be aware if this is something that you're interested in, this is going to be on the market.
Number one portal need, quarterback.
Yes.
It's got to be. Got to be.
It is.
You saw the impact of Luke Altmaier the last 2 years. You just can't sit there and go, yeah, let's go with a guy who's a max starter, solid max starter, and a redshirt freshman. I love Carson Boyd. I think Michael Clayton could be really good someday. If you want to keep winning the Big Ten, I think you got to upgrade a quarterback, add a lot of competition. If somebody else wins that job, great. I think they'll be in the portal for a quarterback because it's the most important position. If you get a good quarterback, you got a chance to go to a bowl game again next year. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're going to take a big step back probably.
Yeah, and I think there's a very clear understanding that 2026 can't be a big step back year. You are losing a lot, but it's 2026, right? Like
there's no rebuilding years
anymore.
anymore.
That's right. That is 100% right. Quarterback cleans up a lot. It is an eraser for mistakes on either side of the ball. You've seen that with Luke Altmaier. You can go win games if you've got a quarterback. It's the most important position. Now, I think it'll be interesting to see what they go after in the quarterback market. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I think seeing who usually you're at a basketball game and you look over, it's like, okay, who's this face? All right, that's who's on campus, right? It'll be curious to see what year are they looking for a guy with multiple years? Are they looking for a 1 year guy? I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. The answer is get the best quarterback who wants to come to Illinois. But it is worth monitoring to see if there's any trend in terms of what those guys have from an eligibility standpoint when they visit and when those names start to surface.
I agree with you. The eligibility doesn't matter to me as much as how good of a quarterback he is. That's the most important thing. Because you can figure out the rest. Like, I'm not taking a 1 year guy just because I want to give the job to Carson Boyd or Michael Clayton or Camden Labate the next year. I don't care about that. I want the best quarterback who can make an impact, whether it's 1 or 2 years. Who's your number 2 biggest need? What position, Joey?
I think it's probably still the offensive line. I like the JUCOs in particular in terms of their ability to come in and really find their way in the 2 deep. Maybe you lose 4 starters, and you've had some classes that really, especially early on, where now you're seeing kind of the goal for that 2022 class. Well, you don't have anyone left in your offensive line room from that 2022 class. Are your guys after that, are they ready? Can't really wait to find out. You got to go get – I think you're going to see tackles. There's enough interior guys. Your Brandon Hendersons, your Brandon Hansons, TJ McMillan. You look at the 2 at least, the JUCO, TJ Taylor and Micah Matalau.
Right.
Those guys are going to be in that conversation. But I think you got to replace 2 pretty good tackles in J.C. Davis and Melvin Priestley. You got a good sell, I would imagine, to go in the portal and do that. You just got to keep bringing those guys in. And maybe eventually you'll get to a point where you've got this chamber of offensive linemen ready to replace one after another. And we do like the talent that they're stacking there. But right now, you got to probably go get ready to start tackles. And I think you can have as good of a quarterback as you want, but you got to give that guy time. And tackles are your important spot there.
Yeah, I don't know if they go into the season thinking Aiden Kanapik's definitely our left tackle, or that Brandon Hansen, is he definitely one of our guards? Is TJ McMillan definitely our center? I think Brandon Henderson could be your center, right? He gives you some flexibility. That do they try him at that position? But yeah, I think they want to add at least 2-3 more guys to compete for starting spots going into the transfer portal, and let them and Matalau and Taylor and Hansen and McMillan, all these guys kind of figure it out. Eddie Turk, I would throw into that mix as well. So it'd be really fascinating to watch. Number 3, edge rusher. You agree with me there?
Yeah, the 2 positions, and we'll get to that's probably number 4. But yeah, you got to replace Gabe Atkins, and you've got to replace Alec Bryant, and you've got to replace Leon Lowry. And I don't know if you've heard this. I like Joe Barna quite a bit, but you want to bring in. No, I was just trying to undig. It's not worth it. It's too late in the game. But you got to you got a pretty good pitch there with the production Gabe Atkins had. Go get a game record. You can go get someone who can change a game like the way that Gabe Atkins did, or drive records, however you want to look at it. There's a lot to replace there, man.
Yeah, I like Joe Barna. I like Daniel Brown as 2 of my 4 guys. I think I need 2 more, Joey. I think I need 2 more edge rushers to step in. Because I don't know about Eric Gale or Mason Moragan. Is Ishmael Conte a linebacker? I do like the sign there. They need to add a lot at that position. What would be your number 4?
Yeah, it's probably DB. It's 1. I think you want to go get another corner.
One corner.
I like Jaquan Morris. I think he's going to, and him and Hankins are going to come in and have a chance to shake some things up. maybe Xavier Scott is your portal addition, right? Because in my brain, I'm assuming he is gone. I think that's probably a fair assumption, but you got to go get another cornerback. And then you're going to have to think about what you've got at safety pending the decision of Matthew Bailey. If he comes back, you feel a heck of a lot better. If he doesn't come back, probably want to go add to that spot. I like Sabor Kareem. I think he would be, if Matthew Bailey goes, I would look at him as the front runner for that boundary safety spot until you feel otherwise. But what about the free safety spot? I think Sabor Kareem could play there. I would love a long ball hawking free safety like him. Otherwise, you've got a Mac Rusetic in that conversation.
Who's got to take a big step forward, right? You got to see a big step forward from him. I don't think you can go and relying on him. I do think Andre Lovett and Zanai Scott are two guys that they could figure into that too deep, but those are more like backups for next year, I would think, than, hey, we're going to hand them the starting job. So, yeah, if Matthew Bailey goes, you need at least one, if not two.
Yeah, and you saw that they brought in Dre Riley, who ultimately maintained his commitment to Mississippi State, a junior college player who's headed to Mississippi State. But clearly that tells me that, hey, this is something that they've got to look at and they've got to plan for in terms of what that looks like. And look, Jeremy, we started this pod talking about money. You don't have money to not spend money, right? And you got to – I know they're not spending all that money on just the prep and junior college. You're going to the portal with some money in your pocket. Go spend it, right? And I think that's a position you would look at because the cell is still good. I understand the cell isn't what it was when it was Kirby and it was Sydney and it was even Kendall Smith. The cell is still good there. Matthew Bailey had a good season if he does not come back to school. Because that free safety position is going to put itself in spots to have takeaways. Miles Scott was honorable mention all Big Ten. Like that snaps, opportunity, production there. Like you got a good pitch out there.
All right, some positions I don't want to overlook. Running back, I think adding Jabari Barnett probably takes that one out unless you lose two guys. I wouldn't be surprised if you lost one, but losing two, I don't think so. Tight end, if you get Cole Russ, Davin Stoffel, Christian Abney back, I think they could add one more to the rotation if they want. If you lose somebody that you're expecting to play, you got to go find one. My next one, would it be linebacker, Joey, or wide receiver, or defensive line? It's weird that we've gotten this far and haven't talked about defensive line, but I kind of like what they've stacked there as long as they keep a couple guys, right? Like next year, if you went into the season with Tommy Wadurajaye, Angel McCollum, Pat Farrell, Eli Coonan, Kurt Neal, Demetrius John, Cameron Brooks, Isaiah White, I feel pretty good. If you can upgrade, you can upgrade, but that's a group I think you can work with.
Yeah, I like that. Now, there's a couple guys in there you haven't seen a lot of snaps from in college games that would leave some unknown. But, I mean, the talent, I think, is there. More time with Terrence Jamison, obviously, would put you in that position. This has really – we have seen this position really grow quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 years because this was always a top 2 or 3 portal need.
They had 5 guys. They had 5 guys last year. But if you get Neal and Durajaye back for a second season, like I feel good about the development of Farrell, Coonan, and McCollum, and we'll see what John and those other young guys can become.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a huge priority as you would look now. If the opportunity, that's the underlying thing with all this. The opportunity presents itself. You listen to good opportunities when they come knocking at your door. That's just life. But I don't have that super high on my list. I'm with you on running back. Linebacker is an interesting one because I do think you would like to continue. Linebacker, where do you feel about Grant Bierman? Yeah. Right, that is kind of an equalizer for me because if you feel like this guy is ready to roll and another winter, another summer with Tank is going to have him on all cylinders next year and you can live with some of the first-time starter up and down that's going to happen, then roll with that. Because you still got bringing back James Crouch, you're still bringing back Malachi Hood, you're still bringing back JoJo Hayden. All right, you can Ish Conte. Where is he? What position does Ish Conte play? I don't know, but he's kind of in that cloudy mix. Kind of reminds me a little bit of JoJo, right? Hey, where is he? An edge? Is he a linebacker? So I mean, maybe you would sniff.
I think I'd have wide receiver. over linebacker, to be
I
honest with you.
think that's right.
As long as you think Bierman is ready for that step forward, because I didn't think linebacker was good enough this year, and I'd like Malachi Hood to take a step forward next year. And James Kurtz, I don't mind in my rotation. Do I want to roll with him as a starter for a full year? I'm probably not at that right now. But wide receiver, you lose Hank Beatty, you lose Alex Kapka-Jones, Hudson Clement, Colin Dixon, feel really, really good about that. Then you're looking at Justin Bullock, really good to start the season, kind of disappeared late in the year. Mario Sanders, can he figure into that slot position? Braden Trimble, I think he's got to play next year. I think he could have played this year. I think he's got to play more of a role. Then you add some of the young guys, Nas Rankin, Kenyon Alston. You need a veteran there, Joey. I'd like somebody with speed that can stretch the field, right? Some speed and length that can stretch the field. Yeah, maybe it's Braden Trimble.
I have all sorts of just accessories over here for the pod. I enjoyed my little pod pile here.
Corner?
I'm with Pod Corner. Yeah, it's old
Pod
game
Nook.
notes, random scribblings. I have some receipts that I will be mailing you. Yeah, we got all sorts of stuff here. I would look for Braden Trimble to take a rotation step forward next year. I think there's opportunity to be had for him. You got a pretty good sell at slot, and I just do you want to move Colin Dixon? Do you want to move Hudson Clement there? I don't think that'd be a bad decision. I
like Dixon more there than Clement, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we've seen that, right? We've seen proof of concept with him at slot. Also, quite liked him as an outside wide receiver too. Like he's a good player.
Sneaky, 500-yard season for Colin Dixon.
Yes. So do you examine the good news when you have someone like Colin Dixon is you don't have to say, "Oh my gosh, we need a slot. Oh my gosh, we need an outside guy." If the right one at either one of those positions comes open, hey, all the better, and you can work from there. Yeah, maybe someone who could take the top off the defense a little bit. I'm still all in on Braden Trimble. I love what he could be as a redshirt freshman for this team. It is. Yeah, absolutely it is. But you got a good sell. You're going to have some money, I would imagine, to go in there and see if the right opportunity comes forward. That feels more to me like right opportunity versus need.
I think they need one. I think they need one. I think you need one in your rotation. Does it need to be a star? No, because I think Hudson Clement and Colin Dixon can be your 1 and 2, and you hope Trimble emerges. But I'd like another flavor in there. I'd like some speed.
Okay. To me, it's if the right opportunity presents itself. But I mean, I'm not going to argue if they need one. Sure, yeah, it makes sense.
All right. I think that does it. I think I'm tapped out. It's 12 hours into this workday, Joey.
We had visited 4 establishments. Mary Ann's, I don't want to sell because I really quite like the other place that we didn't finish out. There was a no laptop policy. Didn't work for us. Understand it in the big picture. Didn't work for us. Then we had Harvest.
No, how could an establishment not allow laptops? That's some kind of discrimination. To us working journalists.
I think it is probably seasonal. I very much like the place, so I don't want to dunk on them at all. This is my first Harvest Market experience.
Really?
No, I've gone in there to do a quick shop, but you're like, oh, let's go there. And I thought, well, are we going to sit at the checkout line? What are we going to do here? And there was a nice setup in there. Didn't get a chance to eat.
Good food.
I know it's our guy Trevor Valise's spot. I wish I would have gotten into the food game.
Then we were welcome to Moe's, though we kind of snuck in the back door, so they didn't do it, which I kind of enjoyed. But
I told you walking over there, I was like, I could just welcome to just a steak burrito, please. I'm welcome here. I feel welcomed. Man, I love Moe's. Good time. Good day today, man. This is a really fun day. I know a lot of people don't care about the inner workings of where Illini Inquirer eats around Champaign-Urbana. I hope they do. It's a really big part of my life. Just talking about places I've gone to get food, but this is a really fun day. It's a really good class. I really, really like this class. It's just cool to see these guys it's just candidly, we don't cover as many Friday night high school football games as we had. Even when I first started, I think we value our time at home on Friday. My goodness, these guys are on campus 10 times a year. You talk to them whenever, but it's cool to see those connections you've built, get to know these guys before they sign and ultimately get to Illinois. So it's just a fun day all around. And Illinois treats us very well on National Signing Day.
Not like USC.
With no press conference,
The
number one
number one
class in the country.
country, and don't do a press conference. Which
I don't
kudos to
understand
Brett
that.
Bielema. Kudos to Brett Bielema. He did this his first couple of years. He didn't do it last year. I kind of missed it. He allowed us to talk to his assistants today. So we got so many more stories coming up, so much more insight on the pursuit, on what they think of these guys, how they fit in. And as I said, Pat Embleton, the general manager, sat down with me. He does this every year, and he doesn't have to get insight on this process. We got so much more of this storytelling to happen. I'm glad Brett Bielema does that, because it does let us tell the stories of these guys. And to be honest with you, sheds work on the light that these guys put into recruiting. And this is assistants all across the country, but the staff did a heck of a job in this recruiting class. And I think this is the type of recruiting class that if you stack year after year, and this can become more of a normal thing, Joey, you can keep winning in the Big Ten and maybe push your program to where Illinois really wants to take it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a fun day, man. It was a really early morning, fun day.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Illini Inquirer Podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. And if you're not a VIP member, you're missing it. All the signing day coverage, all the coverage we've got coming up. Become a VIP member. It's 50% off right now. That's more than $60 of savings. But for Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer Podcast.